A lot of things cross my mind, so I want to talk about a whole bunch of stuff. So let's start off with the first thing, which is why and how did Canelo take guys who really wanted to punish him, who really wanted him to feel their power, whether it's Callum Smith who threatened, that he has the power to knock out Canelo, was Danny Jacobs who threatened that he had the power to knock out Canelo, whether it was Sergey Kovalev who said, we'll see how things go, who was a very powerful guy who had the power to knock out Canelo, whether it's Julio Cesar Chavez, who was a much bigger fighter than Canelo, even though that fight did happen at a catchweight, whether it's Triple G, Mr. Drama Show, who in the second fight, Canelo walked down. Why was it that Canelo was able to do this? To be able to understand this, I want you to also look at what Floyd Mayweather did against bigger fighters when he was walking them down. Okay? So I want you to think about Mayweather versus this guy here, Conor McGregor, and why Conor McGregor looked the way he looked against Floyd. I want you to also look at Floyd versus Genaro Hernandez. And notice how Genaro Hernandez was on the back foot against Floyd. So those are the two examples I'll use for now. And then from that, you will know this is not going to be rocket science. Why Floyd is just going to beat the crap out of Logan Paul, and he's going to make him look weak. Okay? All right, so let's first start off with Canelo. What is Canelo doing to these guys that they don't look the way they usually look in fights? They always tell you to beat a bully, you've got to bully them. But how can you bully a bully? You got to play to that bully's weakness. Canelo is a mid-range to inside fighter. He's not really an outboxer. He can outbox. He can fight on the outside, pick his shots. We saw it against Gennady Golovkin, and early on in his career he was doing that. But he specializes in fighting at mid-range to inside. Now, aside from Danny Jacobs and Gennady Golovkin, all those taller fighters I spoke about, well, I guess you have to eliminate Julio Cesar Chavez as well. Sergey Kovalev, Callum Smith are really outboxers. They fight a fighter on the outside. I will demonstrate. Excuse me, but sorry about the cough. So, let us talk about range. Sergey Kovalev and Callum Smith fight opponents from the outside. They're far away from you. I'm going to exaggerate it, right? So I'm far away from the camera, okay? And they depend on their reaching you, and you can't hit them because they got superior reach. So they're outboxers. They fight from range. Sergey Kovalev, he will feint you. He keeps his hands extended outward like this, so he really wants to keep range. He doesn't really hold his hand to his chin unless absolutely necessary, so he's out there. Why? Because he wants to keep his right hand as a threat. So he's always threatening the right hand here, and he's always slipping off to the side like this, okay? He's blinding you with his jab. And then he's always threatening you with the right hand. So he's always off at an angle like this, okay? He's threatening, pop, okay? Threatening, pop, threatening, pop, okay? That's how he hits you with the jab. Okay, may change levels, hit you. Okay, Callum Smith. Callum Smith has something of a similar stance, but he keeps his phone on the phone book. He's much more defensively responsible than Sergey Kovalev. But he's also a fighter who keeps his guard out here or keeps it up here. So his guard is either up here tight so he can just shell up in defense. He has long arms to protect his whole entire torso. And he's got that right hand dangling. He's here, but really he paused with the jab. So he doesn't have a stiffer jab as Sergey Kovalev. Pause with the jab, but he comes across. He'll paw and he'll hook you with the hook, right? Right? He'll hook you with the hook. Okay. So his thing is hooking you. And he has a counter hook like from hell. He'll come from right here. You're throwing the right hand. He comes back this way, and he comes with the hook. Right? Okay, so now, what do both fighters have in common? I said they're bullies. Callum Smith performs better going forward. They can fight going backwards, but they do better going forwards, putting the heat on you because they threaten you with their power. And what most boxers who are facing them have a problem with is closing the distance, because why? Those boxers are afraid of their power, so they're staying on the outside, and they're moving on the outside, and they're dipping, and they're feinting as if they're going to come in, and they're feinting, but they don't, because they're afraid of their power and distance. So they're able to push that fighter back. That fighter's moving backwards, and they're moving forwards. As they move forwards, that fighter's moving backwards, right? Okay. So, based on that, that is why they are able to push their opponents backwards. But remember, they must have that distance to really be truly effective and land their punches, right? The distance is important. Now, here's the thing. I am not a pro boxer. I'm not an authority on boxing. All I do is observe. And what your eyes see is the truth, right? It's not a lie. And I'm pretty sure it's confirmed by the boxers themselves, by experts in the field of boxing. They will say the same thing. Now, what Canelo does is really interesting. And I'm going to demonstrate it for you guys so you'll understand. Canelo, I might as well. So what does Canelo do? Canelo, what he does is he keeps his guard up. But what he's doing, and you see with Floyd Mayweather as well, is he's keeping his guard up, but he's not staying like this. Not staying perfectly straight up. He's a shorter guy. So what's the key? When you're small, make yourself even smaller. So what he does is he leans forward like this, and he's forward like this. So he's even shorter than he normally is, and he's got his guard to protect himself, right? So Canelo, it starts off, Canelo's way out here. Okay? He's way out here, but he's pushing himself forward by leaning in. Okay, so he's leaning in so that if you throw anything, he can snap back at an angle, right? He can snap back. He has his long arms against it. He can protect his whole entire body, unlike me. And the other thing is, not only can he snap back, he can pick the shots off right there. Right there. And if he needs more time, he can just slip back a little bit and pick the shots off, right? He can pick off whatever he wants to pick off, right? So at the end of the day, this is the thing about Canelo. He's inching in on you. I told you guys about this. He's inching in on you. And then if you don't watch yourself and not paying attention, you have to shuffle back a little bit, right? And when you're throwing power and a guy is catching your power and a guy's deflecting your power, right? He's deflecting your power and he's also picking your power, right? He's got good enough defense to block your power if it's necessary, right? Surgically. And if necessary, if you throw something with a lot of heat like a hook or something, he can get under the power, right? And he does it very precisely. You throw a jab and he slips the jab, just basically slips the jab. You know, he can go from this to this and slip it, roll it, right? He can roll the jab if he wants to, and then come back to you, and he's inching in. You're not hitting him, right? You got to respect distance because your power is at the end of your hand. So what happens? He's creeping in, stealing distance with his lead leg. He's sliding in with his lead leg, but he's doing as if he's advancing also, and he's not sliding in, right? And he's bent forward, right? So what happens eventually? Eventually, he's going to creep into your space. And you're constantly feeling like you're cramped for space. And when you're cramped for space, you can't extend your punches. I can't extend my punch fully here. You got to see it from the side. So let's say the edge of the camera or the edge of the picture, hopefully I got the edge, is here. And if I'm all the way back here, I can fully extend my punch. That's where the power comes from, right? The power of my punch comes from full extension, right? 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 Now, if I can't fully extend, and I'm right here now, I'm cramped for space. Now I can't really extend my punches like I want to, right? So what happens? The power in my punch is now gone. Because I really live off the power of my punch at the end of my punch. Out here, I'm good. In here, I'm cramped for space. I can't extend properly. I'm cramped for space. So that's what happens. And that's how he gets them to the ropes. That's how he gets to beat them up. It's the same thing Floyd do. But the thing about it is, there's a psychological element to this. That's why Danny Jacobs didn't look the way he normally looked. Because he's cramped for space. And on top of that, he can't land nothing. What happens when you're throwing all your punches, you're throwing all your combinations, right? And you're not landing anything. You're not landing anything. The guy just, like the Matrix, he's just riding and rolling, dipping and slipping your punches. And he's standing right in front of you, and he's still inching in. He's not looking. See, back in the day, guys would roll and dip and come at you, right? And they come. And you might catch them with something. No, Canelo stays on the spot. He gonna dip, slip, and then keep on inching in on you with virtual distance. Okay? When a guy's doing that mentally, it's destroying you. Mentally, you got a problem. And even when you pivot and you turn nice smooth pivot after a combination, and you turning him, he's still closing distance on you. He don't have to be a power puncher. The pressure alone, mentally, is going to affect you and break you down. Now, see, boxing's 90% mental, 10% physical. It's always a cerebral game. It's chess, not checkers. Now, let's keep it moving. So, a fighter like a Sergey Kovalev, who's a bully, and a fighter like Callum Smith, who's also a bully, now they're uncomfortable fighting a fight. That's not what they intended to do. They came in there to establish their power on Canelo, show him who's the boss, and from there, once Canelo respects their power, they can proceed to push him back a little bit and dictate, and then they can stay in the center of the ring, push him back, whatever, and dictate. He didn't do that. Canelo tested them from round one. Canelo looked at, he circled Callum Smith, he circled, what's that guy's name? He circled Sergey Kovalev. In fact, Canelo's always taking a look at you just to make sure what I know about you is correct. He's circling you to see what you do, what you bring to the table. Then after that, he gonna test you. Let me see if I can walk this guy down. Floyd did that to Canelo. He walked, he came out, immediately started testing Canelo. He closed the distance right up on him. He went right up on him. He went right up on him, right? Right up on him. Hands high, right up on him. And he tested him one time, and Canelo backed off. Canelo was much bigger than Floyd. But he backed off because he wanted to respect distance, because that's the right thing to do. Who are the guys that don't respect distance? Guys who feet like cement. James Toney. I said to Lion Podcast, James Toney don't move his feet. Of course he moves his feet. Of course, in boxing, you got to move your feet, right? He got beautiful pivot work on it, he pivots this way and right? He pivots this way. He had beautiful pivot work. But the question is not that. The question is, does he respect distance? If I shuffle 2 steps forward, will he shuffle 2 steps back? No. What does he do? If I shuffle forward like this, no, he probably would do it a little bit. But let's say, for example, I shuffle forward on James Toney. What does James Toney want to do? Close the distance on me. So obviously he's not going to shuffle when I shuffle. What is he going to do? Upper body movement, right? He's going to move his upper body, snap back, right? He's going to snap back, roll, right? That's what James Toney would do. And because of that, James Toney saw when Roy Jones Jr. was going to do the leaping left hook. He saw it coming. What did he do? He didn't move his feet. He snapped back because he's going to pivot out the way next. You're going to do this and then this, right? That's what he was going to do. He snapped back watching Roy, and Roy realized this clown didn't move his feet. Leaping left hook, boom, caught him, right? But Roy would never have caught James Toney if James Toney, when Roy did this, right? If James Toney had simply, on watching it, as Roy's about to leap, he knew he was going to leap because he stepped back. He knew he was going to come at him. And when Roy did that, he did this instead. Roy would never have caught him. Never. So you got to respect distance. So even the distance fighters understand that. And if you take 2 steps forward, they're going to take 2 steps back. And they may take it off an angle like this so they can pivot around you, but they're going to take it backwards. But sometimes, because you see how tricky and cleverly Canelo closed the distance on these guys, and he's so explosive, quick, and fast with the counterpunching, because you're getting bopped upside the head while this is all going on, right? That's why them guys be backing up. And their punches seem weak because they're actually cramped for space. And they also cramped for timing because this guy's all up on me all of a sudden. This little guy is all up on me. And I can't keep him off. And he keeps on coming at me round after round after round. All right? So that's the major little trick that Canelo do. Now, there's plenty more to his game, obviously. If the guy got power, hurts him or something, he will start to really use his defense and slip and slide and all that. Right. But let's go back to another thing. Now, let's look at Mayweather versus Conor McGregor. A lot of people say Conor McGregor can't punch. He can't throw punches. What happened was Floyd did exactly the same thing Canelo did. He started inching up on Conor McGregor, started walking him down. When Conor McGregor would throw a shot, he'd pick it off, keep the high guard, and walk him down in a circle. Right? And even though he got caught with the odd punch with Conor McGregor, he was cramping him for space because Conor McGregor couldn't get full extension on his punches because, again, Conor McGregor is a guy that fully extends his punches. So Conor McGregor started inventing shots. He started doing hammer punches. He tried to throw his uppercuts. They were all weak because Conor McGregor in the MMA, he a counter puncher, but from range. You coming in, he time you, catch you with the uppercut. You coming in, he time you, he may bait you, and here you come throwing your lead right, you know what I'm saying? So what does he do? Catch him with the lead right, get out of there, right? So that's what Conor McGregor would do. I'm exaggerating and moving very slowly. So the point is that when somebody's now walking him down, Conor McGregor even admitted, man, I didn't know that was his game plan. I didn't know he was going to walk me down. Of course he didn't know. And he was not prepared for it. Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury is another example. Right? Tyson Fury decided to walk down Deontay Wilder, who was not prepared for that. Right? Obviously wasn't prepared. He didn't even have a reach advantage. Right? Tyson Fury was beating him up on the inside, roughing him up on the inside, and Wilder had no answer for him. Right? What did Wilder end up doing? Walking backwards. All of a sudden, the bully, he's getting bullied. Tyson Fury come off his jab, come off the inside of the jab, right? Nice crisp jab. Come off the inside of the jab, nice squared up stance, right? Catch him with the overhand, right? Put him down, right? Why? Because Tyson Fury was fighting on the outside and also right up on him on the inside. He was transitioning in via his jab, right? He wasn't transitioning in off of feints, and he was doing it a lot quicker, right? He was getting to the inside really quick, like, other fighters who. But the point is that when you have a fighter who's a power puncher, who most of his kills, most of his knockouts, most of his skill, most of his power is seen, not necessarily that the fighter can't fight on the inside, because Callum Smith can do a little bit of in-fighting. He can, given certain situations, you can see he's learning a little bit. Deontay Wilder can do a little in-fighting himself. But when putting a fighter in a situation where they're pressured, where you're pressuring them, all of a sudden, the psychological balance is changed. And what we saw was Wilder wasn't throwing those hard shots with Tyson Fury. And Tyson Fury, of course, rolled off the shot. He extended his jab, and while he keep his jab out there, Wilder would come over the top. But you can see, if I do like this, you can see that my arm It's protecting my head, right? So that's basically what he do. He rolled a punch. He rolled a punch with his arm. Vladimir Klitschko do that. So my point anyway is this. A lot of people say, Canelo took steroids. How he knock out Vladimir Klitschko? Well, Vladimir Klitschko got stamina problems. Everybody know that. 8, 9, 10, 11 rounds. He's stamina. He gets a second win in fights, right? And when you got constant pressure, this was more pressure on Vladimir on Sergey Kovalev than Anthony Yarde put on him. This was more pressure put on him than Andre Ward, because at least he was landing shots on Andre Ward. Every now and then his jab would land on Andre Ward. Canelo, he wasn't landing nothing on Canelo. Nothing. And every time he threw a punch, he paid for it. And of course, Canelo's not this big puncher. He's a sharp puncher. He's not a big puncher. He's really a 160 pounder at best. 168 pounder apparently at best. And he's not a full 168 pounder. But he keeps his defense so tight. And he picks off shots so well, he can be able to close the distance on a guy who has a solid jab, a guy who's really strong, and a guy who's got a lot of power. Especially that guy, his game is a long-range game. You see? And that's what Jamal Charlo is developing. They're trying to develop Jamal Charlo's tools so he can have some inside fighting game. He still don't have it, but he's big and strong. He can take a punch. But that's not enough tools to beat a Canelo Alvarez. You got to be proficient on the inside and at mid-range. You must be able to counter Canelo Alvarez and somehow catch him sometimes with some points. The guy who did, to me, the guy who has had his best performance against Canelo Alvarez to this day is Danny Jacobs. Danny Jacobs actually made it competitive later on in the fight, but by the time he caught on to, as he said, Canelo's rhythm, by the time he caught on to that rhythm, it was way too late in the fight. Right? And Danny Jacobs complained, just like Callum Smith complained, that he felt like he outgrew the weight class. It had nothing to do with stipulations that Canelo had put, because he never followed them. He went in at the way he wanted to come in. And it wasn't that he was sluggish, and that's bullshit. That was not. Canelo made that possible. Canelo made Danny Jacobs realize how skilled and slick, and also how do I put it? How complex he was, okay, in terms of his defense, in terms of how he closed the distance on Danny Jacobs. So anybody telling you, that Canelo Alvarez, man, he drained Sergey Kovalev, that wasn't the reason he beat Sergey Kovalev or stopped him. It had nothing to do with it. Yes, I agree with this one point. Sergey Kovalev did face Anthony Yarde, and he only had a couple weeks to decide whether he was going to face Canelo Alvarez. He had about 2 weeks rest, and generally speaking, a fighter should have more rest. But everything else is excuses. And I thought he boxed extremely well, given the situation. I thought Canelo was going to get him out of there in 6 rounds because he was going to throw the right hand a lot more. He's smart enough to understand, I can't just offload his right hand. I'm going to get punished for it. And so every time he threw the right hand, he got punished for it, by the way. So that was his major weapon, and that was taken away. He only had his jab left, and he was overusing his jab because he was panicking because he didn't want Canelo to close the distance. I listened to Demetrius Andrews say something about a game plan for Callum Smith, which is just the dumbest game plan I've ever heard. But nonetheless, Demetrius Andrews was saying, you gotta throw your right hand and left hand and keep him off of you, right? That's what he did. Exactly what he just did there, I just did it, right? And you can't do that. That's not gonna work. It's not volume that keeps a fighter from getting hit. You gotta have placement, you gotta have defense, and you sure as hell need to have good footwork, right? Callum Smith had a lot of those ingredients, okay? But he just couldn't keep Canelo at bay. He did not know what Canelo was going to do next because his movements were so unpredictable. And those smaller movements, those small little feints, you saw Shakur Stevenson walk down his last opponent, right? He didn't get him out of there, right? But yet, he dominated. And this is the same thing that Canelo did. And everybody's like, Canelo didn't get him out of there. So what does that have to do with anything? This is boxing, all right? Why was he dominating this dude? Why couldn't this dude then do anything to him? This dude had been knocking out and stopping guys and looking sensational. And all of a sudden, this guy is pushing him back to the ropes. In fact, I would say that his fight against John Ryder was much more competitive than this fight, right? Not to mention John Ryder did expose him some and show that he needs to still work on his game, you know, because John Ryder was coming in hard in the 12th round. He was beating his ass up in the 12th round. So Callum Smith, you know, that's why people say, oh, Callum Smith wasn't so great, because of his last performance. All right, but he's still going to learn a lot. But what his trainer and his coach and all his brothers around him need to do is make sure he gets that additional information to deal. Because now that he's gotten those little tricks of the trade from Canelo, experiencing that, hopefully he goes to the drawing board and looks at that stuff and tries to learn. Like, he should be back in the gym. Anthony Joshua, after he lost to Andy Ruiz, went straight back into the gym and started working. And I want to say to Callum Smith, look at the things where you were effective and you were somewhat competitive in the fight with. Look at those things, take that as your building blocks, and then the second thing you need to do is you go back into the gym and start working on those new things that Canelo showed you and he taught you. If you properly schooled, if you've been schooled by Canelo, take the schooling, take it to heart, and use those little tricks and tools in your next set of fights. The one thing that Callum Smith needs to do is psychologically under pressure, because he was being pressured, he needs to learn how to and that comes with confidence with the tools you have, how to be able to deflect that pressure. Okay, deflect the pressure. What I mean by that is, because he was calm, he was cool, he just, the skill set that he had to respect distance, which was a smart thing he did. But the problem with it was that in trying to do that, sometimes you kind of nullify some of the things that you could have done. You know what I mean? But he still don't have, offensively, he still doesn't have a lot of special effects. So go look at all the hand control movements Canelo did. Go and look at how sometimes you got to feint the guy back, but how you effectively feint a guy to keep him off balance a little bit. Think about how you sometimes need to slide in and clinch up Canelo. You know, you was doing it when you got hurt, but you need to do it also when you realize, now Canelo knows how to break the clinch a little bit, but still, you should start testing that stuff out early in the fight and shutting him down. So when he was about, like when Canelo was about to throw a combination, slide in, lock him up. So those are some of the little tricks you got to do, because Canelo's arms are up high. He don't keep them down low necessarily, so it's harder to slide in. But you got to learn how to lock up a fighter. Lock him up, turn him around, reset. That's how you keep a guy from advancing to you. When you realize that, you slide in and close the distance. You slide in, close the distance, grip him up. And once you grip him up, you turn him, and you got more extra time. That's one of the things that Callum Smith did not do in this fight enough. He did it when he was hurt. He'd grip him up and turn him. But you can't, it's not just about having a lot of heart. You got to be smart in there. And if you find you're taking too much punishment with a guy, you grip him up. Canelo was really close to you at certain points throwing punches. You should have locked him up there. You shouldn't have taken that punishment. So all of these little tricks of the trade is something that these younger fighters need to learn. You know, veteran fighters know about it, but he's not a veteran fighter. His brother should have shown him how to do that. But I guess, once again, maybe the training camp he didn't figure out. Maybe he didn't have a game plan for that. Maybe it's just troubleshooting. But it's a great experience that he had. And you got to be a smarter fighter. You got to learn how to lock up fighters, how to clinch. Don't listen to anybody who's saying, oh, man, clinching is not necessary in boxing. Listen, bro, you need to learn how to clinch. And in the next set of fights, I know you know somewhat how to clinch, because I saw you clinch and turn it. But you got to do that a little bit more. The other thing that I noticed that Callum Smith is capable of doing, he just didn't do enough of, was pivot work. He would pivot to the side of Canelo, throw a couple punches. You know, he throws, don't study how I just threw those punches. It's terrible. But he threw a couple punches, and then after that, you know, he just stop and be standing in front of him again, letting Canelo wear him down. No, sometimes you pivot around him, pivot completely around him, you know, pivot completely around him, let him reset. You know, another thing you can do with your forearms use your forearm, use your jabbing arm, collapse it, and check him with your forearm. So you can maintain distance, push him off, kind of push him off with the forearm. So you check him here on his chin or on his double guard, and then you push him off. I saw you do it in the fight, but you didn't do it enough. That's another way to maintain. Every now and then you get away with stiff arming it. So stiff arm him, throw the jab, stiff arm him. Now he can slip the jab and come in and really punish you to the body, but that was another thing you should have done. Stiff arm him a little bit, and while you're respecting distance, once you cramp for space, you got to reset him. The other thing I've seen Floyd Mayweather do to a number of opponents, he did it to Jose Luis Castillo, is after you come out of the shell or you come out of the high guard right here, right, he threw a couple punches, right, instead of stepping around and going this way, right, as he's coming and throwing his combinations, nudge up on him and bump him off with a double guard. I remember Felix Trinidad used to do that. He'd nudge you off and then push you forward with a double arm. Nudge him off. He's smaller than you. Bump him. Bump him. So these are some of the little things that, again, these small little things make a difference in how you control a fighter, because it's about getting control. The other thing you did in the later rounds, in round 12 and so on, which you should have done, is you clinch him and walk him to the ropes. Walk him to the ropes. Let him know you're physically stronger than him. Walk him to the ropes, right? These are all things to get space for you, because you need that space to reset, right? And he's going to have to, and you walk him to the ropes because he's smaller than you. So just those little things, Cal Smith could have brought to his game that would have changed the game somewhat, And there are other things, but again, these things are not necessarily boxing things, but they all make a difference. They all make a difference, right? You want him to use his head movement. You want him to move, because another thing with Canelo, he was on cruise control in that fight. You weren't letting him exert energy. He's a smaller guy. Make him exert energy. Make him have to do something extra to burn his energy up, because he was basically on cruise control with you. He's not trying to expend a whole bunch of energy. He's taking his time. Sometimes you have to change the rate, the energy of the fight. What I mean by that is up your tempo, not throw a whole bunch of punches, but sometimes just move a little bit, just move a little bit more and change the tempo a little bit. Don't stand in front of him all the time going toe to toe. And I know you can do it because I saw you do it as well, Cal Smith. I saw when you went to the side and you was like doing like this. That's after you got tagged up. So you have it in you. The question is, you got to get your cardio and your conditioning up so that you can do that. You must be able to box on the back foot for 12 rounds without getting tired, even if you're taking punishment. You must be able to stand in front of a fighter and fight him, but you got to have other elements to your game, because when you have those other elements, and you are a boxer type, so you should bring those elements to the game instead of just trying to bully a guy and walk him down, right? And that's where you have to have those other dimensions to your game. And I know you have pieces of them because I've seen it in the fight. I'm not saying you would box him off the back foot for 12 rounds. I'm not saying that. But you need to get different angles. Floyd told you need other angles with this kid. And he was successful at landing some hooks and some uppercuts, and even a right hook. The left hook was working a little bit. And you were successful at landing some of those shots on Canelo. They didn't land clean, but they still landed because you changed the angle on him. You sidestep him and threw the uppercut right there, right? You sidestep him, or you come back this way. You went that way and then you went this way, so he got to do like this, right? You got to move him a bit. Guys like that, they want to conserve their energy. They want to be as efficient as possible. They're using precise footwork for that reason, and they're gonna grind your ass down if you don't do things to offset that, right? Sometimes a little pitter-pat flurry just to offset it a little bit. But you have to become as efficient as he has been, and all you got to do is study him. And it's not just about walking down fighters. You got to sometimes let them come to you. You got to change up the game a little bit. Let them come to you. Let them come to you. You was doing some of that with George Groves, but the point is anyway, you got to let them come to you sometimes. Look at Miguel Cotto. Miguel Cotto is a pressure fighter as well, but he would back off. You know, he'll back off because he's a guy like this. And then every now and then he pop a jab, right? And you make you walk into the jab, right? So my point is, it's not just coming at a guy and pressuring them. You also have to be able to be versatile. You got to let the guy sometimes come to you. And I see elements of that game in what Callum Smith has, you know. So that's why I'm saying to a lot of people. Hold on just a second. Hand-to-hand comeback says, fam, I'm here for you. What's up, man? What's up? Yeah, so sometimes you have to mix up your game. You know, you have to change up your game. You can't just be doing the same things all the time and hope that you will get the same results. So these are some of the things I would say to Callum Smith. But like I said, guys like Canelo, guys like Floyd, it's not the power so much that makes these guys push another fighter back. It's the method in which they work at their fighter. See, I'm actually going to the southpaw. So it's the way in which naturally they walk down on fighters. They walk down a guy, you know, they step to them and stuff like that. So, you know, I let people know that in boxing, it's boxing. It's not called. It's called boxing. It's not called strongman contest. It's not called. You could be strong, physically strong, right? That's cool. Sometimes you're physically strong, but you can't stop nobody, and it has nothing to do with your power. You might be a very powerful puncher, but you just can't stop fighters because you don't know how to set up your power. Sometimes you are powerful. You're very powerful. You're stopping everybody, but you're not strong. And that's where you have to work on your conditioning and work on your game so you get all-around strength. You know, I think Callum Smith is a very sharp fighter, but only at a certain range, mostly. You know, and he has to work on tightening up his shots and getting more short chopping shots. So there's all these things that in boxing, there's a lot to it. And I see a lot of people watching my videos. Hand-to-hand combat says, fam, I'm here for you. And he hits me a pound sign. Dude, I'm not you know, I'm not a fanboy, right? I just break down fighters. And I'm not apologizing for Callum Smith. For those of you who don't know, I'm not apologizing for him. I'm just looking at him as a fighter, breaking him down. And so you guys know, I'm really talking about Canelo Alvarez and Floyd Mayweather and how they're able to walk fighters down. I remember Floyd Mayweather versus Zab Judah. It's a perfect example. Floyd Mayweather was coming up in weight. He was smaller than Zab Judah. Zab Judah came in heavier. Zab Judah is the power puncher. He's strong. He's a much more powerful puncher than Floyd. He's not stronger than Floyd. Floyd's physically stronger than him, but he's a much more powerful puncher than Floyd. He's faster than Floyd, right? How is Floyd walking his ass down? Picking off the shots, staying behind the defense, staying consistent. Yes, Zab will thread in one or two shots on him, but he's staying with the game plan, attacking the body, right? Walking him down, picking off the shots, countering, right? So what you have to understand is Floyd was able to almost knock out, almost stop Zab Judah, you know, and Zab Judah hit him with a low blow because the bully suddenly became bullied. And when you bully a bully, and the bully cannot respond like they want to, you know, this is what happens. Okay? So, Shane Mosley versus Floyd Mayweather. Shane Mosley is a strong motherfucker, right? Strong guy. Floyd walked his ass down too, right? We all remember this. Shane Mosley, big, strong guy, right? Almost dropped Floyd in the second round, twice, right? But Floyd's also strong. The difference is Mosley looped his shots a lot. He looped too many of the shots, right? And you go looping shots when a guy's shooting straight. Who gonna hit first, right? So Floyd had more straighter shots, had better timing, and he was able to set up Mosley. Mosley knew the setups, but he fell for some of them. Even though he cognitively knew it, intuitively, he fell for it. You understand? So I might know, for example, that you're a guy that likes to troll people and make fun of people by just coming up behind them and screaming at them. And you jump, right? You just saw it happen to somebody else. Yet that person, because of their timing and the fact that you don't expect them to do that, even though you know they do it, the timing of it sets you up. And when they yell behind you, you jump, right? Because it's intuitive to jump, right? So you can know bait encounters. You can know that a guy, he's a bait encounter guy. He gonna set you up to counter punch. You know that's what he do, but you don't know when he's gonna do it. And so what kicks in instead, you know, if a guy throw a jab at you, you want to jab him back, right? So he jabs you. Any kind of jab. He jabs you, right? He jabs you, and you immediately counter jab, and then you say, oh shit, and you get clocked, right? You know cognitively that will happen, but intuitively you're going to respond unless you've conditioned yourself to understand and you've trained yourself, which means you've been doing it over and over in the gym to step back on it. You've been practicing for that. Preparation. All right, so just breaking down a couple things that a lot of people don't understand about boxing. They always feel, man, I remember I still get in this argument with a lot of people who say Thomas Hearns, he would knock out Floyd. I'm like, no. Why would he knock out Floyd Mayweather? Come on, man. At welterweight? Not at all. Not a chance in hell. Wouldn't happen. And it would be weird to see Floyd walking down Thomas Hearns because Thomas Hearns would be on the back foot. Why? Thomas Hearns was a distance fighter as well. Now, he had power, but he didn't really throw short chopping shots. His shots were long, straight, and sharp, like Deontay Wilder's, like his trainer, Mark Breland's, right? So, even though he had, again, the uppercut, the standard thing taller fighters have for shorter fighters coming in, that's not enough. And this is what a lot of you guys just don't understand. So when I talk about fantasy matchups, I'm breaking down fighters, man. You got to break them down. Now, I took a long time to say this. This is something I could have showed visually in a video. As you know, guys, I do little video clips. That probably would have taken me a minute to 2 minutes to do. So you visually would have seen everything I just said. And you would understand and respected the video because it would have come from sources that did not come from me. Those of you who know what you need, he does these little short video clips and shows people. I see a lot of people try to debate those video clips, but, you know. So I seen a lot of you guys popped in when I was doing my demonstrations, which is funny. And a lot of people started to like this video because, again, they know I'm talking from a boxing perspective. That's what we do. And whether or not my technique is correct or not, which I wasn't really focusing on, is irrelevant. The point is the video is saying, this is why this guy took steps back. And he's right to take steps back. Now, the thing about it is, when you're a bigger guy than another guy, you're supposed to be able to use your body weight to your advantage. You're supposed to put your body weight down on them. You're supposed to rough them up a little bit because they supposedly smaller than you. Now, they may be physically stronger than you. Just because they're smaller than you doesn't mean that they not physically stronger than you. So you may be taking a risk by trying to, clinch them up and walk them back and all that. As happened in the case of, what's the kid's name that faced the Colombian dude? I forgot what his name is. He still got his ass knocked out. But he tried that technique. But when you're a much younger guy than a big grown-ass man, the grown-ass man might be stronger than you, you know what I mean? But you have to try different things in there. You can't just be trying to fight a fighter straight up one way, especially at the elite level. So this is all I got to say about that. I'm what you need, man. You guys enjoy your day. I had beautiful rain came down. And I hope you guys have a good one, man. I thought I'd break that down for all you guys that don't understand. Canelo is following in the footsteps of Floyd Mayweather, if you haven't realized. That's what he's doing. He the Mexican Mayweather, y'all. That's good. I'm not mad at it. I always told people he's a bigger Floyd. Now he probably don't like to hear that. He does borrow from other boxers, but it's definitely a blueprint he's borrowed from Floyd, and he's following through with. And I think that's why a lot of people don't like Canelo as well, because his connection to Floyd and his approach to boxing like Floyd. He said, boxing is about hitting, not getting hit. Now, I'm not saying that's Floyd, who's the maker and author of that shit. Absolutely not. But that's something Floyd says too. And I can tell that Canelo's of that mindset. He said, I'm not going to bang with people. I'm not going to brawl just to see people to see my face get busted up. That's what Canelo said. That's something Floyd be saying all the time. And I think if Canelo continues along this line, I'm gonna say he gonna surpass Floyd in terms of beating world champions. And it's gonna be damn hard to beat this kid. It's gonna be damn hard to beat this kid. The way how he's going. I think the guys who might be able to do something to him is other contemporaries, is Demetrius Andrade. I'm gonna throw Billy Joe Saunders in there, but he don't have the discipline. Billy Joe Saunders, Demetrius Andrade, and Jamal Charlo. I mean, the only guys right now I think got enough experience. I think they got the skills. They definitely got the skills to beat him, but I think they got enough experience to make those fights competitive. I don't think there's anybody else. Killer Plant too young. He's slick, but Canelo's slick too. So, and Canelo's probably sharper, probably more precise, and got a lot more things he could do. And I don't know if Caleb can fight on the inside very well. You know, that's a good question. I mean, he's not proven. You know, hey man, give him a shot. Give him a shot. Let him test his skills against Canelo. But you know, I mean, if he wants to do it, man, he should do it. Because you can't. Experience is something you can't trade. Like that download of experience that he would get with Canelo, win, lose or draw, will be something you can't pay for that shit. Canelo will be like the modern day Floyd in that respect, because these guys got ability. They do have skill. You know, they do have skill. So that's where I think it would be really good for them to get in there with Canelo. Jamal Charlo, same thing. All those guys jumping in there with Canelo would be a blessing for them. And they might win, but I'm guaranteeing you this, they'll learn a lot being in there. You know? And the longer it takes is the better they should become. And if I was them, I would watch footage of Canelo, Floyd, everybody. I watch all of them. Not just how to beat him, but to use things he uses in my fights. That's what I would do if I was them. I don't know about them, but you know, you can never stop learning. You know, in something you're passionate in. So that's just my thoughts on that. Some other things I want to talk to you guys about. I may have to do it at a later time, but another thing I wanted to talk about that was on my mind was, I don't really see nobody out here talking about it in boxing. How many of you guys come from a martial arts background? How many of you guys actually have fought, you know, been schooled to fight in some way, shape, or form? You know, I think that makes a difference as well. It's not just scrapping, but people who actually may have been in some sort of martial art, because I believe that the discipline that you get from a martial art, depending on who your trainer was, though, who your sensei was, I believe that allows people who kind of had been in a martial art background. It depends on who you are and your mindset and so on, but I think that makes a difference in how sometimes people view a combat sport, you know. And I do hope that a lot of people at least have been in combat or had some sort of combat at some point, because that helps a lot of you to understand that when you're fighting, you know, yes, it's an art, no doubt about it, but you should always have some sort of way of doing it that's natural to you, that sort of follows some sort of rules. Let's put it that way. That's the appreciation I had for the discipline and commitment to something, not just scrapping for scrapping's sake. There's some guys who are very intuitive in terms of scrapping because they've done a lot of scrapping, but then there's other guys who are schooled in scrapping. So when they see this guy and the way how he carries on himself, they know exactly what to do to handle him. Or even before he even carries on himself, they know what to do to handle him, to neutralize him. So because I came from a martial arts background, like I noticed some of the guys who actually teach boxing on here and have a very sort of ordered way of approaching it. I've realized people who come from a martial arts background, not all of them, because some of them they are what they are, but the people who come from a martial arts background generally would approach boxing in a much more methodical way, if you could get that far. So that's all I got to say for that. I hope that you guys have a good one. And those of you who actually have a martial arts background, why don't you leave it in the comments section? And it's nice to see you guys coming on here and watching these videos. Remember, I am not a professional boxer. I am not an amateur boxer. I'm just a fan of boxing. But if what I've said has enlightened you, because there are a lot of people who try to oppose people like me. All right, and it's okay. They know I'm right, but they like to oppose, and it is what it is. Another channel I want to refer you to is Uncle Robert's channel, Robert Murphy. He gives the fundamentals of boxing and little tips on boxing because he himself boxed in the amateurs. Okay, he actually was a boxer, and he's a nurse now. And some of the tips he gives is just great tips. They really are. And I advise you guys who want to just at least throw a punch or something to actually check out that channel. All right. The other channels I always promote, and I talk to you guys about promoting, is the Lion Killers podcast. I don't agree with everything they say, and even though I talk on my podcast about them on my stream, don't get it twisted. I think that they have some really good things, especially points on past boxing and some fundamentals of boxing, and they really raise some good points. Other things are, barbershop conversation. You don't take it too seriously, and it's fun. But it's a nice podcast. I advise you guys to go check that out. Another podcast that actually has come back up on here is Raw Boxing TV. That was a guy that was a good friend of mine. He's a Christian brother, and really good podcast. You guys should check that out as well. And I'm going to refer to another podcast that I think is really good, Marvin Cook's podcast. Marvin Cook was on YouTube. He used to teach boxing. He came back and he's teaching boxing again. You guys should really check it out. It really helps stimulate your mind, helps you to see things inside of the ring as fans that you may not have seen before. And I always advise you as fans to try out those things, not on somebody, but you can try it out, shadow boxing, whatever. Try out boxing. Try to do it. It's very difficult to do for those of you who've been couch potatoes because a lot of you throw from the shoulders. You can't throw punches from the shoulders, right? You throw it from the hip. You throw your punches from your feet up. And that's the way how you really do it. And I know this because I actually tried it, right? And when you're looking in the mirror, at first you're throwing punches from your shoulders. You're like, this is weird. And if you've done any martial arts, it feels weird as well to throw from your feet. And what I mean by that, I try to. The positioning of the camera makes a big difference in how things look because camera can distort things, but and it could look really weird. So, but just these simple little tips. I'm just a fan, mind you, but I just wanted to get you guys involved in boxing. I know a lot more people are involved in boxing. A lot of boxing's coming up all over the place. I'm hearing people use the word because it's starting to become a trending word and stuff. But really, boxing's a great sport, and it's not just something that's exclusive to the athletes that you watch on TV. You yourself can do some boxing. Do not use it as a tool of violence, however, on people. Make sure it's a fair fight. Use your boxing skills. Get inside the ring. Put on some gloves, and duke it out in there. Those of you who are older people like myself, I advise you to take caution when you try to do this. Boxing's not for everyone, so don't just jump in there and try and spar somebody and get knocked the fuck out. I don't want that to happen to you guys because when you get knocked out, it does affect your brain, and some of y'all are not very healthy. right? And so that could affect you very badly. So be careful. I am an old guy. I'm 40. I'm 45 years young. Okay. I'm not in the best shape right now. I'm in terrible shape, but I try to eat healthy. And but if you guys saw me a couple months ago, I was in terrific shape. So I'm telling you guys this. Some people say I have a young heart. I have a young mind at heart, which is true. I do have kind of a young mind, but I am an old guy. Okay, so I advise you guys start picking up boxing. And some of you guys look stupid on Facebook. That's okay. It starts off you look stupid. People are going to mock you. They're going to laugh at you. But it's not where you begin. It's where you end. So for some of you guys, the journey will end in being a world champion. For some of you guys, the journey will end in just you getting good cardio, getting healthier, having a healthier life and a clearer, fresher life. And you just be so young at heart because you've been doing it. Some of you will never get to sparring in the ring. Some of you will get to punching on a punching bag finally. Some of you will, just use it for exercise and shadow box. All that's cool. It's really great cardio. It's a great workout. Whatever level you reach at, what it will do is when you start doing it, that's the beauty of boxing. Boxing's a doing sport. When you start doing it, now when you're looking in fights, you're seeing things that you don't normally see. But I refer you to these channels. I also want to refer you to Coach Eric Bradley's Master Boxing. It's a beautiful channel. Coach Eric Bradley is so very poetic in the way how he puts the words together, and some of the things everybody knows, but sometimes he goes into a lot more detail on it. And he has these courses and programs in Master Boxing that I advise you guys to go check out. I cannot forget to mention Precise Striking. Up to this morning, I was watching at him take interviews on people. Precise Striking is a great channel. I also want to refer to Coach. He's a Philly coach. Coach Anthony. Coach Anthony is a great channel. I advise you guys to go check out Coach Anthony as well. That's another channel where they show you just little things on boxing. It's not the fundamentals, but you can always go through his entire library. The trainer that trained Roy Jones Jr., his name is Tom. Anyway, World Class Boxing. Check out World Class Boxing on YouTube. That's a great channel as well for you to check out. Carrie Williams on YouTube. She does more aerobic stuff, but she really gets you to throw your combos. And, she doesn't focus so much on defense, just mostly on offense, but how to throw punches and stuff. She's also great. I want to just refer to these channels over and over again. Get you guys immersed in the boxing and do it. Do the boxing. I know I haven't been doing the boxing much. I haven't even been doing my squats. I haven't been doing any ab work or anything like that. So I put on a lot of weight. I put on about 15 pounds. But you can see I still look relatively okay. And the point behind it is that my hair is kind of growing back. Isn't that kind of cool? But at the end of the day, it's something that really is good. And I know you guys talk your little warrior talk with each other, and you got keyboard warriors and you guys go at it, and that's cool. That's also a part of it, being competitive and having fun with each other. It's fun. It's not it's not really that serious, right? But at the end of the day, boxing is a beautiful sport, which when you start doing it, really start doing it, you're really going to appreciate it a lot more. Now, having said that, it's not for everybody. What I mean by that is the training and all of that is cool. Yeah. But stepping into that squared circle is not for everybody. And if you're an old guy like me, please do not rush into trying to spar people. Okay? You're going to get hurt and bad, especially if you've never taken a punch in your life. So I would suggest that aspect of boxing, that you get yourself prepared as much as possible, and you step in the ring with somebody who is going to be considerate of you, that you're somebody who's now first doing this, because you don't want to get into a real gym, one of those elite gyms, or a real gym period, where guys are wild and crazy, and then next thing you get your eye poked out and it's bleeding, and next you have to go to the hospital, or maybe you get a broken nose in the fight, or the guy jabbed you and just jabbed you a little too hard and break your nose. Listen, you can get hurt really easily, because anybody who's been in combat sports knows or any kind of combat whatsoever knows you can get hurt very easily. All right, especially if you don't know shit. So I would suggest to people that you get a proper coach or somebody, and don't just jump in there and try and spar people. Now the younger people, they can do whatever the hell they want to. Hey, Uncle Robert, I just hailed out your chairman, brother. Yeah, the younger people, y'all can do whatever the fuck you want to do because you're young. So you get broken, whatever. But for older folk like myself who've never shared a actual boxing ring in an actual boxing fight, I sparred a little bit, but that doesn't mean nothing. But get into actual boxing ring, and actually fight. Don't be stupid. Don't just jump in there, okay? You have to be careful. You can do all the other training and stuff. That's fun and all of it. But when it comes to getting hit or trading blows with somebody, especially if you don't know what you're doing in there, it could be very dangerous. So if you're going to go spar somebody, try to spar someone when you start the beginning of sparring who is, someone who knows what they're doing, and so they can they understand they're working with somebody who's just an amateur, like not even amateur, like somebody who doesn't have any experience, and so they will deal with you accordingly. That way, you'll have a pleasant sort of experience with boxing. You'll be able to sample it, taste it, and then also understand how difficult it is sometimes to get to this guy, and he's just coolly just having fun with you, and you get a little to experience boxing as a fan, because the whole idea is most of you fans are not going to ever be professional boxers or amateur boxers or anything like that. You just want to experience it, right? So you need somebody who can take it very easy on you and just get you to experience the sport, because I'm telling you, it's nothing like that in reality. Oh yeah, man, I dealt with some wild ass people. Shit, I got poked in my freaking eye. Anyway, and they're real wild where I come from. These motherfuckers, man. And you know what's the weirdest thing? You try to prep for a certain shot, and you just say, "Oh man, I'm just sparring with you. What the fuck?" These motherfuckers, man. Oh shit. Hey, wild. Anyway, man, I'm just saying. But boxing's a beautiful thing, and it takes a while. It takes a while. That's why I'm kind of like, I'm not rushing into. I'm not trying to rush into with these wild motherfuckers. These wild people down here, man. Oh my God, these guys are so crazy. Damn. But I'm taking my time, and I'm working my way towards it. Shout out to Uncle Robert once again for the hail out. I'll check your channel in a minute, see what you got. But that's all I got for boxing for now. I'm gonna catch you guys later. What you need in the building, but now he's gone. Peace, guys.